combine small town roots with business savvy, and you've got the Rural Rundown podcast. We're sharing our marketing and branding strategies, tips, and tricks that rural businesses can use to educate, inspire, and entertain their customers, and to help you make sales and hit profit goals. So what does it take to go from your mom is your only fan to famous in a small town? Tune in and listen up as we feature business owners and organizations that are doing big things in their community and creating opportunities for generations to come.
Hey Brenna, how's it going?
It's good. We are on the road. We're in Texas. The sun is shining. The weather's good. Life is good today. How are you?
I'm good. I do have a question for you. Do you think that October 4th, 2021 will go down in history?
I don't know. I don't think it's as good as October 3rd because that's what day he asked me what day it is. But it was a pretty good day. I did say to Oli in the middle of the day, towards the end of the afternoon, I guess, I was like, I think this is the longest that Facebook's been down before because it's happened before. Facebook and Instagram have had their glitches, have had their tantrum moments, but I think that was the longest that we had seen social media platforms kind of be in a blackout.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've definitely been through, since I've been working on social media, there's been days where it goes down, and I swear it's usually Fridays at like 3 p.m. and it will be down, for a little bit, but I kept checking on Monday on Facebook and Instagram like every couple hours because I just kind of expected it to be back because they usually get through it pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. So it was really an interesting kind of like blackout day. I think Twitter had its fun because it was still up and alive and making fun of everybody waiting for Facebook and Instagram to come back. But that's kind of what we're going to talk about today for business owners and small businesses. This probably felt like it really affected them in that, whatever it was, 12 hours. So we're going to kind of talk about what we should do, and should this be your end all be all, or what can we do to make sure this doesn't like throw us way off track if it ever happens again. So
yeah, absolutely. I'm part of a few different Facebook groups with different business owners, boutique owners, and people were definitely like, so what do we do? And people kind of like I've seen a lot of funny TikToks and stuff since then being like, oh, I'm not addicted to social media. And then the Instagram, Facebook blackout, they're like, oh, maybe I am. Because it's like, okay, what do I do all day? It was funny for me because I try really hard to like stay off of the platforms while I'm trying to get work done. And this week was a busy week for me. But I had different things saved for me to like reference back on Instagram, or like I was working on finishing up my client's branding, and so I was like, I really wanted to screenshot her Instagram so I could do a mock-up, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't get there, and I was like, okay, well, this is kind of like weird, and I'm like, what's the workaround? What do I do now? And it was fine, it was whatever. But there are people who were really like, holy crap, all of my sales come from Facebook or Instagram.
Yes, it was a little bit of a wild ride. I saw a funny meme that was like, I knew after refreshing the Instagram after 8 hours, it would come back. It would finally come back. Yes, I know. And I think this is a good conversation because it's something that I feel like I get asked about frequently. Like, what do I need to be on? And obviously for a lot of my customers, Facebook is kind of our main source of what we put our marketing on, but I do also with a lot of them have the other platforms created and ready, and we're also utilizing content across there. So we can kind of sit down and talk about that and kind of dive into maybe some of the different things you can have set up and ready in case something like this would happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this kind of references back to a few episodes ago. We talked about websites, right? And how big of a deal websites are. And I made this analogy about social media kind of being like what you're renting. And after Facebook and Twitter, had their moment, it's kind of like, okay, not only are you renting this place, but you're renting it from a crabby landlord who could decide at any moment that he just wants to evict you, because that's what happened to us last week. So yeah, definitely looking at different places you should be. Obviously, I feel like the biggest place that you should be, the biggest thing that you should be looking at right now, if you don't already, is having your own website, because that's fully like people can still go to find you, people can still Google you, and it's something that you own. It's a piece of the internet that you own, which I think is such a huge deal, right? And we see that with social media. We talked about this already, so I don't want to like beat a dead horse or really kind of like hammer this home, but that's where you should be driving your traffic. That's where you should be converting followers to paying customers. And that's where you should kind of be fostering your email list and doing a few other things as well. You shouldn't be giving that traffic away to anybody else, but you should be capturing it yourself.
Yes. And I mean, everything that you're doing on your social media strategies, it can be presented in a way on your website. It might look a little different. It's not, I mean, it could be a post, but I mean, all that information can be there. And like you said, it's yours and you can make it how you want it to be. So I think there's just so many benefits of having that website there and ready for you.
Yeah, absolutely. One way that I've been trying to switch my mindset about the way that I put content out, which might help a few other people, is to think about my website first. And I do this for a few reasons. Like, first of all, that it always lives on my website, then people can find it in a variety of different ways. But secondly, because I'm really trying to hire help. I'm really trying to hire people to add my team. And one of those people being like a social media manager. So if I can create blog content, which is like long form, here are my thoughts, this is what I think, content, then I could have a social media manager just go into that blog, take bits and pieces, put it in an Instagram caption, and then send it out with a graphic that I have them create or one that's already used in the blog post. So by creating it for my website first, that content gets to live there before it goes out on social media. And that social media post either pushes people back to my website, or it's like you said, just presented in a different way so that you're reaching different people at different places.
Yes. And I mean, there's so many things you can do. This is connected to Facebook the way from an ad side. Like if you are sending traffic to your website, like you can track the people that are hitting your website too, if you have the pixel set up. And I mean, I think there's other ways to do that as well. So I mean, there's always ways to be utilizing both and together and having that, like you said, kind of being like the connecting plan instead of thinking of them as individuals. How could they, correlate together, get people really to where you want them to go, which would be your website, learning more about you, spending more time with you rather than just like keep scrolling.
Yep.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I think when we think about social media, the biggest part is like connecting with people, right? The social part of it. But the other way we could do that is through an email list. That's how you connect with people in 2021, is not through a handwritten letter, but through an email.
Yep. I think that's huge. Email and text messaging, we can go into text messaging later here, but like those are if you want to think like of weapons, like I don't want to go like graphic here, but like they are your tools or your weapons that like really are your direct connection to those people. Like you can, you could send someone a personal message on Facebook, but like getting into their email inbox or into their text messages is so much more personal. And connecting there directly, they know you're trying to have a conversation with them. So building an email list and your text message list is very important. And we can probably do another episode of like how you could actually do that, some strategies. But this is just something to start thinking about. Like if everything went blacked out, like you could still have your email list and your text messages and they're yours to keep communicating with. So having those, I have one example, one of my awesome clients, she sent me, it was actually from the Boutique Hub, I believe, an email they sent out to all the businesses they work with, which is genius. I'm like, I should have done that. But it listed like the different ways you could be reaching out to your clients because your Facebook and Instagram is down. And the top two ones they had were email and text. And my client, what she was going to do is she usually goes Facebook Live every day on Facebook. But instead, since she couldn't do that, she was going to upload that video somewhere like to YouTube or to a Google Drive link and send an email linking directly to that. So that was like a workaround or system she had in place and was ready to do since her social was down that day. So I thought that was really creative. And there's lots of ways to maybe think about this and not just think we're stuck.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to admit, I capitalized on the moment. After it was down for a while, like I said, I was really trying to get my own work done, but I had a few emails. I got one from a Boutique Hub. I got one from a few other places. And I was like, you know what? I'm also going to capitalize on this. And I went through and collected all of the emails from consults that I've had or potential clients, and then my current clients, exported them all, popped them into my email system into Flowdesk, and fired off an email that was like, hey, obviously you've noticed this is down. Hundreds of people have probably told you by this point, but it's really time to get serious. If you don't have proper like website and email systems in place, like let's chat about it. Like let's even just do a consult. You don't have to hire me for anything, but you should be thinking about it. You should be talking to somebody about it and coming up with kind of a plan, right? You know, when you're kids, you come up with like the evacuation plan of like if your house is on fire or something. This is what I'm talking about. Like like not to be like quite so serious, but you have to have a plan or else your business is under fire, really.
Yep, it is. And I think that's kind of when we're looking at like the A teams are website, text messaging, emailing, like think about that. And then I would say like B team would be also just like being on other platforms and maybe having some content there too. So you could kick it up a notch. And we've said this so many times. There might become a day, like if Instagram is what you feel is like your baby, it's the thing that's getting you sales, whatever. Someday that might change. So we always need to be kind of, it doesn't mean like we need to be doing the most on every single one of them, because that's overwhelming and a lot of small businesses cannot do that. But I think you also always need to know how to pivot. So that's just having the content strategy, understanding that your branding, who you are, how you talk about yourself, and just bringing it to a different platform. So Facebook and Instagram is down. Maybe what are we thinking about for YouTube, Snapchat, TikTok? You wanted to talk about Pinterest, Brenna, so I'll hand it over here to you on that one. But let's be thinking about maybe some of the other platforms and just making sure we're set up on them so we're ready to go if need be.
100%. So even if you've never, I don't want to say never, but even if you're not like utilizing these platforms to the best of their ability, still being on them and directing people there once in a while, then you're not losing all of your social media followers, right? Like you said, Instagram decides tomorrow, like, hey, this is actually going to become like a subscription based model and you have to pay us like $50 a month to use the platform. Like that could happen, very well could happen. Like whether it does, whether it doesn't, the other thing to think about here is that, conspiracy or not, Facebook was under fire on Monday before they went into shutdown mode, right? So we see on Monday there's a whistleblower talking about some like serious like allegations against mental health with some like young teens, things like this. This all comes to the spotlight here. The next day these things shut down. So there's a lot of things at play there. I think there's a lot of outside sources for us to just be like, oh, it's always going to be free, it's always going to be there for me to use. I'm not so sure that's like a guaranteed. It's not 100%, obviously that's why we're talking about this. But when people were like really like distraught and they're like, holy crap, I didn't know what to do, that's where all of my business comes from. I'm like, well, hold on, this was 2 social media platforms out of 6. I would say there are 6 major players in the game. 2 platforms who happen to be owned by the same company went down. Do not put all of your eggs in one basket. We should not be relying solely on those 2 platforms for all of your business, for all of your traffic. So yeah, looking at different places, I really want to talk about Pinterest, because Pinterest is a platform that's been there for quite a while, and it acts quite a bit differently than the social platforms like Facebook and Instagram, where Pinterest acts more as a search engine, and content kind of lives there forever. So more evergreen type content. That's where like, blog posts that you have on your website, you can link them to Pinterest one time. They're always linked, they're always there. And it's still traffic that if you have the right SEO and the right like marketing kind of strategy behind Pinterest, that stuff is always going to pop up for people whenever they're searching it, right? So the blackout of Facebook and Instagram happens. Maybe somebody's over on Pinterest Googling like how do I up my sales for my clothing boutique? Maybe you're a clothing boutique owner and you've decided you want to help out other boutique owners. So you write a little blog about like, here's how we drive sales from other platforms. Okay, boom, now you've popped up on Pinterest. Now they're going to your site. Now they decide maybe that they really like a piece of clothing that you have in your store. Then they purchase from you. You're creating new customers. It all happens from so many different avenues. It doesn't have to just be photos, because it's primarily what, Instagram is, photos of your product. There's other ways to connect with people, and there's other ways to use other platforms. So like you said, not even that you have to like go full attack on every platform all the time, because I think in order to do that, you have to hire somebody. There has to be somebody on your team that's able to take that stuff over, because it's too much for one person. But having the wherewithal to say, okay, I know how to use this platform if I have to, and then like date them a little bit. Just see, like, get around, see which platforms you like being on, which ones you don't. We've talked about this before, figuring out which social media platform is the best for your business. It's kind of this harmonious circle of like where your clients are, where you like being, and seeing where those two things can come together.
Yes. And I think the important thing to remember too is like, yes, you have all these platforms are separate, but when you're like on them trying to create content, it's not like each one has to be a brand new, beautiful idea for every single thing you post. A lot of times we could reuse a lot of content, which I think we should also probably do another episode on. It's just like figuring out different ways that fit the platform, but it's the same thing. So you're not constantly trying to just like be brand new and so I'm a lot of loss for words of what I'm trying to say, but you get it. Like you don't have to like, it's not reinventing the wheel every time. So I hope that's encouraging.
And like you said, having a good understanding of your own branding helps you repurpose that content, right? Because it makes the transition easier, but you're not reinventing the wheel. You're not becoming somebody new on a different social platform. You're still your business. You're still yourself. Now you're just going to use this platform that's out there. We see that with TikTok too. TikTok's new. People really like it right now. There's a huge sense of community on TikTok, which like we don't see on YouTube or Pinterest, right? We don't create a community as much as we see on TikTok, but it doesn't have to be just like silly TikTok dances. And I think people have proven that in the last year, that there's multiple ways to use this app, but just trying it out and being like, okay, how can I take what somebody's doing a funny little dance with, or how somebody else is using this platform, how can I take it and fit it to what I'm doing? It's okay. I mean, like, this is not to like get off topic or whatever, but about this like reinventing the wheel and repurposing content, it's okay to like, you don't have to copy what other people are doing, but seeing what other people are doing and using it as inspiration to fit your business, right? Like, I'm not telling you to go out there and copy somebody's artwork or like plagiarize anything. I'm telling you to go out there, see what people are doing, see what works, and then figure out how you can make that fit in your business. Try it out.
Yep. Beautifully said. I think that kind of wraps up. We were going to call this one a sidebar sit down. So I think that kind of, unless you had any other points you wanted to say, I think that kind of puts a nice little bow on what happens with Facebook and Instagram going down. It was really timely. So we wanted to hop on and just kind of share with you our thoughts. And we'd love to know, were you affected by this? What are you thinking? Do you need help or more ideas on ways you can like capitalize on other processes or have systems in place so you feel prepared if something like this happens again?
Yeah, I would love to know what people were going through. I think the conversations after Facebook and Instagram are down have been really interesting. And not that I am not have excuses sometimes, but it's been so interesting to see people be like, excuse after excuse. Well, sales don't work this way, or my email list doesn't get any sales, or blah, 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 blah. It's like, man, we cannot just keep relying on platforms that we do not own, that we are just borrowing. We have to take a little bit of responsibility and be like, hey, I really did feel scared this day when everything went down. I got to figure out what's different. So we would love to chat with you. We would love to hear like what your October 4th, 2021 was like, and how it affected you in your business. So yeah, I think you're right. That kind of wraps up our sidebar sit down.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day. We'll talk to you later.
Well, that's it for this episode of the Rural Rundown podcast.
Thanks for listening. You can always find us on social media at The Rural Rundown.
And if you really liked this episode, we would totally love it if you gave us a review and gave us a little rating.
It would mean so much to us. And for more small town roots and business savvy, catch us on the next one.